Now to NBC's Task Force on Terrorism. The latest on the investigation expanding rapidly tonight, and still the Justice Department is asking the public for more help, hoping the names of the 19 hijackers just released will generate more tips. We're working the investigation from all angles, including the Justice Department, on the ground in South Florida, and overseas. Let's begin with NBC's Pete Williams. Pete?
Tom, with more than 4,000 leads already to check out, the FBI is hoping tonight to churn up even more as agents frantically search the nation for anyone connected with the hijackers who might still pose a danger.
A dramatic sign today that law enforcement agencies still fear additional attacks could come at any time in any fashion. At the borders, U.S. Customs agents at Alert Level 1, their highest, thoroughly checking every single car or truck lined up to enter the country from Mexico or Canada. In Washington, the Justice Department hands out a list of 19 people identified as the hijackers of the 4 planes. As these pictures emerge of some of the actual aircraft involved in Tuesday's suicide crashes, seen here on earlier flights, one of the 767s that crashed into the World Trade Center, and the actual 757 that slammed into the Pentagon.
To date, we have had more than 36,000 total leads.
On American Flight 11, the first plane to hit the World Trade Center, 5 hijackers with recent addresses in Massachusetts and Florida. The first on the list said to be from the United Arab Emirates. United 175, the second to crash in New York, 5 hijackers, all with recent Florida addresses, 4 in Delray Beach. 5 more on American 77 that dived into the Pentagon, recently living in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, and California. And on United 93 that crashed in Pennsylvania, 3 of them also recently living in Delray Beach.
Even though these individuals are presumed to be dead, anyone with information about these individuals immediately contact an FBI field office.
Another list not made public is sent today by the FBI to the nation's state and federal police agencies and to the FAA and airlines. More than 100 names of some suspected associates of the hijackers or people the FBI thinks may know who other associates might be. But so far, no arrests.
Suffice it to say, if we believe that there's somebody in the United States who is associated with this conspiracy and we had evidence upon which to base a charge, we would have and would level that charge.
In the U.S. alone, more than 30 places searched, including this hotel in New Jersey at the request of the FBI, for a possible acquaintance of one of the hijackers. In Boston, a computer seized, officials say, that belonged to one of the hijackers, now being analyzed. And a control tower tape from the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania reveals an Arab-sounding voice warning passengers of a bomb on board, an apparent effort to control people on the plane. And the FBI presses the investigation worldwide, authorities detaining anyone who might have information. In the Philippines, a Saudi pilot who officials believe once went to a training school with one of the hijackers.
And the FBI tonight is stationing teams of agents at major airports ready to respond in case any passengers turn up who are on that list of 100 people that investigators say they're eager to talk to. Tom?
All right, thanks very much, NBC's Pete Williams. But, Pete, we want to talk about a couple of additional developments. Tonight, there is a report that Atlanta may have been a target at one point. Now, a lot of this stuff is going to begin to pop up in the next day or so, but what do we know about the reliability of that?
We don't know whether it's reliable, Tom. We do know that in an interview with investigators, one person, apparently we're told, who has talked to the hijackers, thought that there might be other cities, that Atlanta might be among them, but there's simply no way to know whether that is true. It's totally unconfirmed at this point. No way to know what to make of it.
And Pete, yesterday they were talking about tracking down 40 so-called associates who may have had a role in these hijackings. They still on the trail of those people?
Well, yes, but that number, I think, has expanded more to 100. The associates might be anyone known to have associated with the terrorists, but also anybody who might have been had information about them. Anybody that a hijacker ever called on a telephone. Check all their phone logs. Check all their financial records. See if they ever show up on videotape together. Did they ever make a credit card purchase together? That's where this list of 100 comes, and undoubtedly it will grow.
Thank you very much, NBC's Pete Williams tonight. Now let's go to NBC's Kerry Sanders tonight in Delray Beach, Florida. He is moving around with the latest on what we know about the alleged hijackers and their pilot training in Florida. Kerry?
Well, Tom, here in Delray Beach, Florida, 2 of the suicide pilots on the list of 19 that was released by the FBI lived here really unnoticed by residents. Records show that while they lived here, they also lived at other locations in Florida. It's a complicated trail to follow, but the one thing the FBI has been able to stitch together, at least 7 of the pilots on their list trained to fly in Florida. The portrait emerging to FBI investigators, the suicide pilots lived out of suitcases, constantly on the move. 22-year-old Walid al-Shari, one of the identified suicide pilots. For 5 weeks this year, he lived at this Boynton Beach, Florida motel, $285 a week, paying his way with a Visa card.
I'm just worried about how they get to be so close, and you never know. They be right here, and you'll never know nothing.
Other pilots on the FBI list stayed at the Bimini Hotel in Hollywood for a month this year, $650. The hotel manager says an anonymous man paid the bill in advance in cash.
And he said that he was looking for a room for these guys for a month because they wanted to get their pilot's license.
NBC News has obtained copies of airline tickets purchased just 6 days before the hijackings, sold to suicide pilots Saeed Al-Ghamdi and Ahmed Al-Nami. The tickets purchased at this Fort Lauderdale travel agency. The only demand, according to the travel agent who sold the tickets, the men said they had to be in Newark, New Jersey by the 7th, just 3 days before the terrorist attacks. The men paid $139.75 each to fly Spirit Airlines from Fort Lauderdale to Newark.
We get a lot of people that come up and only buy one-way tickets. They were very quiet. They just sat there. They were patient while I looked up different flights. They paid in cash, and they didn't wait for their change, and then they left.
Several of the suicide pilots used as their home addresses, mailboxes, etc., making it difficult for anyone to track them down. And sources tell NBC News, to cause further confusion, several men on the FBI list of 19 would sometimes switch the order of their names. Suicide pilot Zaid Zerahi telling some people he met his name was actually Zerahi Zaid Shahir. Now, FBI agents say one of the most difficult things is following the money. The paper trail is really not there when it comes to the money, except for the Visa records from that hotel or that motel in Boynton Beach. They have gotten those Visa records. They're now running the numbers because clearly what they're trying to find now is who supported these people in all of their endeavors in Florida. It is not inexpensive to live here, go to flight school, and just go about what they were doing here. Tom?
NBC's Kerry Sanders, thanks very much. And for the latest on the presumed mastermind behind all of this, Osama bin Laden, we're going to turn now to NBC's Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, he's the most sought-after person on the planet tonight. Do they have any idea where on earth he may be?
Well, Tom, Osama bin Laden has been targeting Americans since George Bush's father was president, and a decade later, the U.S. is not any closer to finding him.
He's known as the contractor, the head of a loose-knit confederation of terror groups, dispatching operatives around the world. A master of media manipulation, he first stages high-profile interviews to threaten the U.S., then strikes his targets, and immediately moves to the next tent, mud hut or cave, disappearing from view and very well protected.
He has been able to get a physical security detail that is second to none in terms of being alert to any type of potentially hostile forces that would come within 150 miles of his base.
Until 3 years ago, he used satellite phones, not knowing that the super-secret National Security Agency was listening in. But officials say after a newspaper reported the intercepts, bin Laden turned to encrypted internet communications, or couriers carrying zip drives, making him that much harder to find.
The geography of Afghanistan has a million places that people can hide and not be detected. It's a very rough and rugged country, mountainous and desert, and very few population centers whatsoever.
And bin Laden is rich, inherited a $300 million fortune, which he uses to finance Afghanistan's Taliban rulers. The U.S. says in return they give him complete protection. And with each attack, he picks up more supporters, replenishing his cash.
Series of attacks has actually made it easier for bin Laden to raise money either from wealthy radical sheikhs on the Arabian Peninsula or even from poor but like-minded believers.
Why are his soldiers so loyal? Many served under him more than 10 years ago when he helped Afghanistan fight the Russians. His ally then, the U.S.
There's no doubt in my mind that at one point or another we probably armed him. But indirectly, I was training the people who today are terrorists.
The challenge now, building a coalition of his neighbors to isolate bin Laden. Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. And most important, pressuring Afghan leaders to turn him over.
To the extent that governments such as the Taliban government in Afghanistan support such things, you need to understand you cannot separate your activities from the activities of these perpetrators.
The Bush administration is counting on the fact that the enormity of this week's tragedy, Tom, has prepared Americans to finally do whatever it takes to rid the world of bin Laden, no matter how long it takes or whatever the cost. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Andrea Mitchell tonight in Washington.